everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Realcomm Live, episode 51. Next week is going to mark our one-year anniversary, and I tell you, it's been an absolute blast doing these, having great conversations with really great people, and today is no exception. We are going to continue our conversation on the smart building, smart district, smart city conversation, and with that, what I mean by that is a smart building is obviously one structure. 30 plus years ago, I actually really started following the whole idea of smart cities, Disney's Epcot and Ken Sakamura in Tokyo and in Japan, and then back to the United States with Smart House Limited and various other projects. But actually, the Realcomm kind of abandoned the conversation on smart cities because it was too big, too unmanageable, and we really weren't seeing any success at that scale. So now we find it interesting that this whole concept of digital districts, meaning a cluster buildings. We've been talking about a number of them over the last few months. And the idea is a consensus of vision between one, two, or multiple developers and a city where they say we're going to do a massive development and it's going to have a vision and it's going to have a central theme and it's going to be 21st century ready. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we've got Mike Smith, a good friend, 15 plus years. He's now CEO of WhiteSpace. And Chuck Niswonger, again, 15, 20-year relationship with our community, president of NiceNets Consulting. So let's bring these two guys on. And hey, gentlemen, how are you this morning?
Hey, Joe. Hi.
Great to see you. And it is also, as I mentioned, how far we go back. It's nice to know that there's still people fighting this battle over 15, 20, and in some cases 25 years. And, when I first started my journey, I thought, boy, all this stuff makes sense. I came from Fortune 250 computing. I said, apply all this technology to a building, it makes sense. But as all three of us know, the journey has been a long one. I think we've gained some momentum, but it is one that you need to be persistent and consistent. And both of you have done that I've watched your careers. So let's get right at it. Mike, let's talk about the project in Tampa. Okay. Well, actually, first give a little background on yourself, a quick 30-second career overview so people have some context, and then let's go right into the project.
Thanks, Jim. So appreciate your time today. So my background started in commercial real estate with Forest City, which became Forest City Realty Trust, which eventually Brookfield acquired. But I started there quite some time ago and was running an internal team called Building Technology Services. And we effectively were internal consultants.
What year?
Oh, now you're going to make me sound old. 2002, I guess.
So you were way ahead of the curve.
Yes, when we started this. And we really focused in multifamily, but we realized that technology was evolving very fast. And so we created this internal group that was really responsible for understanding what it took to operate an asset from a technology perspective. I left in 2015 to create WhiteSpace because I saw a need in the space to help other owners, other innovative architects and GCs and owners, help them get through the murky waters of technology. And that's what WhiteSpace does today.
Okay. And before we go on to the project, Chuck, why don't you do a quick intro on yourself as well?
Sure. Thanks again for having me here. Happy to be here. I'm 21 years Air Force retired veteran. I spent a lot of time in the Air Force in technology through telecom and communications planning. Got into manufacturing through Mead, the paper company. I was in the packaging division, ran their IT group there, along with another senior director. And then went to Jamestown, became their IT director for 8 years. That was 2007 to
Jamestown's a real estate company.
Jamestown Real Estate Company. I was their senior IT guy there, and then left and started NiceNets Consulting in 2015. And here I am.
Very good. All right. So great careers. You got a lot of experience, a lot of credibility. So Mike, let's get right into the project. Why don't we bring up the slides and you can, we'll go off camera and you can just kind of walk us through the project, and then Chuck's going to do the same, and then we're going to get right into our conversation.
Yeah, so the project that we're talking about today is the in Tampa, Florida. It's called Water Street Tampa, and it's really a vision of Jeff Vinnick, who owns the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Cascade, which you may know is run by Bill Gates, to create this really unique, dynamic marketplace in Tampa. and they acquired 56 acres in a downtown area, right near the Amalie Arena, and developed this project, this multi-phase project. What makes it so unique is, and you mentioned earlier, Jim, was we talk about smart cities, but you take a large city and it's so many different developers and owners and operators. In this case, we had a really unique opportunity because it's one owner and it's one developer for the entire 9 million square feet and $3.5 billion project. So it really opened the door for us to do something special in this downtown market. Some of the foundational things that the project was hoping to achieve were wellness, walkability, sustainability, the connectivity, not as necessarily related to technology, but we'll use that here as we go along. And then overall technology vision, creating this frictionless environment in this downtown market, because it does have the multifamily, the office, the retail, and an outdoor component. And it really tries to bring it all together, and we're trying to do that through technology.
Why don't we go to the next slide so you can get a little visual? Yeah.
So just to kind of tell you where we are right now is phase one is almost done, and you can see that on the map. There potentially are 2 more phases that will come north of the site here, but we finished 2 Marriott hotels. There's 1 Edition hotel that's wrapping up now, and there's about, I want to say, 2,500 multifamily units, and then 2 office buildings actually. 1 was an adaptive reuse, and then 1 is a Class A office building that's just being opened now.
Now,
so it's fully underway. It's actually been built.
You said a couple Marriotts. Did you require them to bring innovation into those projects?
I'm sorry, Jim, I could barely hear you. Can you say that again?
As far as the 2 Marriott hotels, did you require them to bring innovation into their projects?
So Marriott has a pretty prescriptive guidelines list of requirements. So I think it kind of went back the other way. Here's what we had to put into those buildings, whether it was Wi-Fi systems or door locks or DAS. It was really prescriptive what we had to bring to those projects.
Got it. Next slide, Ian.
And I think the last slide, while it's loading up, is just an aerial view of the completed projects. You can kind of see them there, the ones that have been done, with some highlights of some future projects to come. So it's an exciting time in Tampa to see the growth. The projects, I've been involved since about 2017. We were meeting early on when it was just a bunch of empty fields or parking lots, and now you can actually walk it and see it, and it's amazing to see the transformation that's happened.
So in a project like that, obviously a lot of people, a lot of organizations, a lot of moving parts. Do you feel that you are high enough up in the process to actually influence the ultimate end result? I mean, if this project feels different than others, can you say that your group was influential in making that happen?
Yeah. We were involved so early on. And then as the buildings came on, we were involved in both in the vertical design as well. So we were able to influence what happens under the ground. So whether it's the communication duct bank or the smart light poles, as well as all the vertical assets and the technology. And that was really our goal, is to create some type of standardization on all the systems, so that we could start laying on these smarter platforms, whether it's a software that kind of monitors and controls everything, whether it's a digital wallet that connects, the residents and the tenants and the retail. We have the infrastructure and the foundation to do that, which was a big hurdle to get through between what's private and what's public. And that did require a lot of planning.
Yep. And we're going to get to those topics in a little bit. Let's let Chuck take us through his project, which is not in the United States, and it's in Vietnam. So if we want to bring up those slides, and Chuck, walk us through.
Sure. And now I'm taking this approach a little bit differently from Mike. Mine's more of almost like a reporter. I was asked to come in and provide some additional exposure to what they're doing. So NiceNets does not have that kind of influence over what they're doing. They wanted me to really tell their story, and what a great story it is too, because as we saw when you first heard of it, nobody really knew this was going on. This is northeast of Hanoi. It's called Ocean Park. It's done by Vinhomes. This was started in October of 2018 and covers The unit of measure they use is 420 hectares, which is about 1,038 acres. And it started covering premium villas and apartments. It's got schools all the way from kindergarten to the university. That Vin University is in partnership with Cornell and the University of Pennsylvania. They've got a shopping mall, a hospital, and Technopark Tower, which was what my case study was on. And I posted that recently on a blog on NiceNets.com that people can see that and see a lot more detail. But that's what this project is. VinGroup is about a $16 billion company with lots of subsidiaries. And I think similar to what Mike had said, that's kind of what has made this successful from what I have seen, is that Vinhomes is the residential commercial real estate development company, but VinFast is, they develop the electric vehicles. They've got VinSmart that's doing the connectivity. They've got the Vin schools and the university. They've got infrastructure. They've got a centralized command center for monitoring the network and all of the cybersecurity. And it's just a fascinating project with the way they work together.
Well, and let's talk about that. Nobody would really ever think of Vietnam as being the center of innovation. When people ask me, Jim, around the world, where are the centers of innovation outside the US, I would say Singapore, I would say Dubai, and I would say South Korea, and probably parts of Europe, okay? The Scandinavian countries in Europe, based upon my experience. Where did a vision like this come from in Vietnam, and then who did they help build it?
Well, the VinGroup grew, and they are remodeling themselves, or getting a facelift to be a technology industry service company. And their goal is to be one of the major technology companies by 2028. And in doing so, they're trying to attract technology companies in this new smart building at Technopark Tower. So I was surprised as anyone to see how far they had gone with the innovation inside the building. Just thousands of sensors, video cameras, all of the components.
Where's the vision coming from, though? I mean, where are they? Is the vision coming from the U.S., from Europe, from Asia? Where are they?
I think it's coming from Asia, and I think there's a lot of influence there. And the government is buying into it. I had a chance to talk to Peter Chun from the World Smart Cities Forum, and he's finding the exact same thing. They're working with the governments there in Vietnam and other countries to bring these projects to these cities. And they have to be very selective about what's already in the city, how much residential, how much technology, how much industrial, be able to get the roads and grounds together. And we'll talk a little bit about more of those challenges as we go on. But I think that's where it started. And the government is seeing that they want that kind of vision for their people. And I think a lot of the global warming component and the influence is taking a lead role in some of this as well.
All right, let's cut the commercial a little sooner, because when we come back, I want to talk about some features of the project and then also some of the challenges. So let's hear from one of our sponsors and get right back to that conversation.
We're at a beginning, a new start. At home, at work. The way we think about places, about spaces, about where and how we work has changed forever. With many continuing to work remotely and many others planning a return, it's more important than ever that we know how the spaces we occupy can be used, how they should be used. Density can help. Our secure sensor technology anonymously tracks how people use spaces. When they enter, when they exit, what they do when they're in a space. The result is accurate, actionable data that enables companies and organizations to better plan and manage how their spaces are used in real time, to conserve energy and resources, to improve workplace experience, to keep people safe. We can make spaces better. We can make the world better. Together.
All right, let's get back with Mike and Chuck and continue our conversation on digital districts. So, and even as I watch our commercials, and some of the solution providers now in our industry, we've come a long way. Even though we're not where I think we should be, I think we are seeing some real progress. So, Mike, let's go back to you. I heard you say a couple of things when you were describing the project about, how life will be different. I heard smart light poles. I heard, digital payments. Give us the top 3 features of the project that, a novice person walking into this district will say, wow, this is different than anything I've ever seen?
Well, I think the first thing is the Wi-Fi experience that we've created, which allows us to do a lot of different things. But it's what we call a universal access network. So once you come in and authenticate, no matter where you are in the public space, no matter what building you're in, garage, you're covered and you're fully connected. Right. And it allows us to create that experience of knowing where people are, pushing information to them that might be useful. And then, with all the security features and things like that, I think that's kind of the first thing that people would actually notice that you don't see in everyday smart districts like this. And that took a lot of infrastructure, the right partnerships, and it took a few years
Is
to
that a
actually.
free amenity? Will that be considered a free amenity?
It would be free for guests, but your residents and your tenants, it's actually a paid service for them.
Okay.
And what we call is kind of a take your network with you. So if you're paying for a gigabit internet and you go over to the restaurant down the street that's outdoor, you're taking your private secure network with you. I think that's the first thing that you would kind of notice in that environment is that
Did
that
CBRS play into that at all? I mean, is that
we did look at that. Right now, we have the infrastructure to deploy that if we choose to do that, and we have some partners we've been talking to. Right now, we're kind of banking on Wi-Fi 6, the connectivity with the light poles, and then all the fiber that we've put in the district to continue that connectivity.
so you can evolve as technology evolves?
Yes, absolutely. And then I think that
Okay.
the other piece is you'll notice, and you're seeing this more everywhere, but the ability to use your phone as a credential, right? So your phone can become everything, and we're allowing you to do that. So if you work or live in the district, that same credential, that same phone gets you into your office as well as your residential your place of living. So trying to consolidate and again, creating that frictionless environment was very important to the owners. And that's what we did through technology.
Okay. Chuck, how about you? When you walk into the Vinhomes project, how will life be different for those?
I think there's a lot of commonality between what Mike had said too. The tenant app, resident app, guest app does a lot of those things for you and provides that level of interface. But one thing that's a little bit different about Asia, I think, is that than here, and certainly inside of Vietnam and here in Hanoi, the facial recognition component of the cameras is widely accepted. And so it's not just what's on your phone, it's what's on your face and it's what's on your car. And so the person driving into the parking lot immediately is recognized. The app tells them where to park. They walk into the building knows who they are and they're there. I have been told they can choose to opt out of that and use the phone app or a biometric like a fingerprint. But it will call the elevator. There's 24 high-speed elevators in that Technopark tower. It'll call the elevator, tell them where to go, adjust the lighting in their office, adjust the temperature in their office if they're the first ones in. It's no touch to get into the elevator. And all of the appointments, the bus schedules, transportation within the city, that's where things start to expand. Now you can start to schedule bus rides, and they have specifically negotiated bus routes to stop at key places, including the front door of that Technopark tower and the residential areas multiple times throughout the week, multiple times throughout the weekend, so people can get in and around the entire district.
So we weren't going to get to this point yet, but I think it's a nice segue, the privacy component. So facial recognition, Chinese, absolutely ahead on this. Hikvision, AI at the device level, big database of folks to practice with. And if you look at it literally, we've seen facial recognition attempted in New York City over the last 3 years, mild success at best, where I believe it was Alibaba's headquarters, the cafeteria, you were buying lunch with your face 3 years ago, okay? So the technology is way more advanced, society's acceptance. I think we're going to continue to get some resistance in the West on that, specifically as it relates to privacy. So let's go back to Mike. Mike, how do you address the privacy issues in such a instrumented district?
Well, we are not doing facial recognition for all the reasons you just mentioned. I don't think it's as widely used as I'm sure Chuck will mention about his project, but we we took the time early on to hire a consulting firm to actually come in and help us with privacy policies, data governance. What data are we keeping? How are we storing it? Where are we storing it? Just to make sure that we were being very thoughtful about any kind of information that we are keeping. You can track people all day long, and it's not very intrusive. But you start putting names to it, and you start knowing who those people are, then it becomes a privacy issue. So we're not tracking. I mean, we do track movement. We know where people are. We don't know who they are. And that's intentional right now. We have the technology to do that, but that's intentional, and that will come later on.
So Eric Schmidt, Google, pretty smart guy, right? The chairman. He wrote a paper about 9 months ago called The Bifurcation of Technology Globally, meaning the world would be split in half. You would have an Eastern technology approach, and you'd have a Western democracy approach. Do you think digital districts, I'll ask Chuck this first, do you think digital districts, once you start expanding the scope around the world, are going to be different from location to location?
I think there'll be some level of difference, but I also think even here in the West, we're accepting more and more, sometimes more than we realize that we're accepting. So your phone, if we were to just yell, "Hey Siri" or "Okay Google" really loud, a bunch of phones would probably start beeping and waiting to hear what the next thing was. But people are very comfortable now unlocking their phone, not just with their fingerprint, but with their face. And that technology is becoming very, very common. And so when that starts to grow, I think it'll just become commonplace, because that's just what everybody does. Now in the Vietnam and China, those has been around for a long time. The technology is very good, whether you like it or not. And it's used heavily. So it becomes one of those things that people have accepted. And it's not one that is just on we want to know who you are. We want to know when things happen, when weapons enter a building, when someone has fallen down and is hurt, when there's a potential kidnapping, when there's a source of a leak in a building. We want to be able to detect those kinds of things and be able to respond to them quickly so the damage is minimized. So the applications of some of these technologies has gone far beyond just what we worry about oftentimes for facial recognition and privacy.
Right. And we've actually been privacy advocates, because in the Realcomm community, going on 15 years, if you look at some of our old writings, we kind of knew this day was coming. And I, as you know, all for the applications, the automation, the efficiency, the benefits. But I do think we have to be very careful, to Mike's point, about where that data is stored. Is it anonymized? How do we use it? Because, I'm pretty technically savvy, and I'm getting pretty annoyed at Facebook ads showing up on things I didn't search for, and I'm trying to figure out which microphone did it come from, my laptop or my phone. And I don't know, maybe people don't care, but I do. I don't think somebody has the right to follow me around all day on my laptop with cookies and other things.
I think it's Jim, it's the same question as we've had. It's convenience versus security. And where do you slide on the scale? People like to have passwords used of 1, 2, 3, 4 or A, B, C, D, or no password at all. Now you've got to go through two-factor authentication, and that's, people are starting to get used to that. But it starts to make it's that sliding scale between convenience and security.
Yep, totally get it. So
people are accepting it more and more. I mean, you look at what everyone's posting out there. Especially the younger generation, that I don't think that's not a concern for them, right? So I think we're going to see
until it is.
Exactly, right.
I always say, it is until there's a knock at the door. And it's like, wait a minute. So anyway, I knew this was going to happen. We could spend an hour with you guys. 30 to 60 seconds each. Start with Mike. Advice to anybody, developer, consultant, integrator, supplier, working on a smart district project. You've got a lot of experience now. Mike, what's your 30 to 60 seconds of advice?
Yeah, start early, and understand how you can connect things, right? In control of infrastructure. It's only going to allow you to future-proof and lay additional platforms on top of it. Cost is going to be a barrier to entry, but there's unique business models to recoup that cost, and to explaining that to the leadership, sometimes it can be a little difficult. But I think if you start early, bring the right partners in, I wouldn't get so hung up on what technology you want to deliver on, when everything delivers. If I had told you what was popular in 2017, we would be so out of date now in that project, you'd be laughing at us right now. And so making sure that infrastructure is flexible enough to put whatever the future comes into those buildings. So future-proofing the technology is going to be very important.
We call it lay the foundation, and PS, the first guy who had to convince an executive board to install an elevator probably had some issues. A telecommunications infrastructure that can support a 21st century community is imperative. I mean, but there are still many, many, many projects where that is not the case. So,
right.
Chuck, your 30 to 60 seconds of wisdom.
I'd say we talked a little bit about it earlier, but getting that cohesive balance between all the players, and all the players is going to be who are the investors, who's investing in this new opportunity, and how quickly can it grow? The government, the regulations that are going to be part of it. Who are the builders? Who are the private companies? Who are the suppliers? And how can we balance this in such a way that this is going to be wildly successful for anyone who lives there, and people will want to come. The tenants want to be there because of all of the different components, because of how efficient it is, because of how it uses the resources. If you want to talk about the saving the planet component of it, there's all those things that are going to be. You've got to be a diplomat and balance those together.
All right, guys, I can't thank you enough. Really appreciate your willingness to sit and talk about these projects. They're groundbreaking. We're going to stay in touch and obviously continue the conversations over the next year or so as these projects evolve. And again, thank you for taking the time and for your commitment to this journey. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, Jim. See you, Mike.
Same here. Be well.
Hi, Chuck.
All right, with that, let's bring on Howard Berger, who's going to bring us up to speed on what the heck is going on in real estate technology this week. Always got some top stories for us and gives us insight. Pretty fun conversation. Those guys.
Oh, that's a great conversation. Great projects. So good having Mike and Chuck on here with us today. Share their wisdom.
All right, let me get out of here so you can do the news.
Yeah, so thanks, Jim. So every week we highlight a couple of stories from our weekly news briefing. We release it every Thursday morning, Pacific time. And this week's lead story, it comes from Aaron Altscher. He's the director of CRE Technology Initiatives for Car Properties. So in this article, Aaron draws a whimsical analogy between architecting a data and AI strategy to assembling a symphonic orchestra. So first, you need to get the right instruments like smart devices and computers that can deftly extract the information you need, then apply analytics, and then apply the right automation tools to massage the data. Then with a lot of practice, scales and arpeggios, you get the value from the data and the music is then perfected. And then once tuned and finally honed, you can take data from numerous sources, IoT, external, public, and private data sets, IAQ sensors, then apply AI and machine learning to better understand everything from customer sentiment to lease renewal rates, as well as new potential areas for increased revenues and cost reductions. This is a great article. Thank you, Aaron. Bravo. Next, a shout out to one of this week's tech partners, City Zenith. So 10,000 new smart cities projected by 2050. Construction costs are rising. Supply chains are totally inefficient. Architects, engineers, and contractors, they need better integrated data platforms to develop more efficiently and reduce carbon emissions. So according to ABI research, digital twins are forecast to save city planners upwards of $280 billion by 2030. I don't know how they get these numbers, but it's amazing. City Zenith has developed what they call an urban digital twin platform called Smart World OS to help manage construction and post-construction processes, and then monitor building operations and help environmental objectives. So thank you, City Zenith, for that article. Also, second tech partner, Locity, shout out. They did an article on who's focusing on taking a flexible approach to workplace design in order to help lure back workers to the office. So it's a tall order competing for the home, with the home office. So corporate office space, has to be more people-centric than ever before. Founded in 2015, Locati uses historic and real-time data to help clients create that right-sized, people-centric space that really helps employees feel engaged while achieving productivity. So it's easy to get overwhelmed now having to juggle safety regulations, social distancing, transient workforces, along with the confusion of figuring out which of the exploding number of prop tech tools are worth looking at, no less adopting. But it's a given now that digital tools are absolutely necessary to enable operators better understand their employees and tenants, and Locati offers a substantial solution. Finally, a little industry news. Cyber, undoubtedly one of the biggest challenges to our industry. 5Q and Tempered Networks have collaborated to bring 5Q's managed security strategy to clients with the ZETA, Z-E-T-A, which is an acronym for Zero Trust Architecture. And this protects operational technologies in buildings by securing the perimeter, monitoring and detecting, and actively responding and reporting. And they use Tempered Networks' Airwall platform to provide that network segmentation. So thanks to 5Q and Tempered for some new tools to fight the battle. Unfortunately, I am out of time, but there's a lot more in our weekly briefing. So check it out, and I'll see you all next week.
All right, Howard, great job as always. It's really interesting to see the movement of a new generation of companies in our industry, right? And the impacts that they're making. And every week as we go through the news stories, we're seeing relationships being established that are really have the potential of changing things in a big way. So thank you for that. And I will see you next week on our 1 year anniversary. All right, so before I wrap the show and talk about next week, let's hear from our final sponsor, and I will be right back. All right. First of all, thank you to all of our guests, our sponsors, our team for putting on another great episode. And before I talk about next week's show, I just want to throw out an idea to our audience. In some planning calls, we've been, talking about how do we change up the dialogue and the conversation a little bit. And a really kind of funny idea came up about doing a 30, 60, maybe 90-second segment every week on the world's dumbest buildings. Not just talking about what's coming forward, but really starting to bring point to some really dumb things going on. And we, of course, wouldn't mention any names or any buildings specifically, but point out. So if any of you out there are interested in let's just get the conversation started, send us some videos of what you think are just ridiculously dumb things that happen inside buildings where technology could be a helping hand. And let's see what we get. And if we do, we maybe, try it once in a while. Maybe we turn it into a regular segment. So anyway, next week, a great conversation. We're going to be talking about the Intelligent Bootcamp coming up at Realcomm and IBCon, something where many, many, many people who are now doing extraordinary things started with really dumb, I'm not saying that in a bad way, simple, basic questions about where do you start? And in our world, there is no dumb question. The dumbest question is the ones that don't get asked. So we're going to have Tom Shercliffe from Intelligent Buildings, who's been responsible for that event for a number of years. Lachlan McQuarrie from Epic Investments, who I believe when he was at Oxford attended that meeting, and also Steve Lefkowitz from Warner Media. That small company with that big building in New York. Steve was once a participant in the Smart Building Bootcamp. So with that, looking forward to next week and a great conversation with those three wonderful guys and all the hard work they've done. And so with that, I'd like to say thank you. All of you have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Realcomm Live. Be well.